In a gaming market that seems split between quadruple A tentpoles with 9-digit budgets and mass-produced AI slop, it's great when a gem emerges from the chasm in between. With Rivertowns, Swedish indie developer Frog Song brings us a city builder-themed puzzle game that's as charming as it is clever. Rivertowns opens with a cutscene that, at barely a minute long, introduces about 1,000,000% more lore than most any other city builder or puzzle game I've ever played. At a glance, the game's transformed drab wastelands with saturated color scheme and gameplay may remind you of 2023's terraforming strategy game Terra Nil. But once you start placing tiles in Frog Song's game, you'll realize that this feels more like a modern Carcassonne than high-concept strategy game. Across scores of ever-complicating arenas, your job is to place Tetris-like puzzle pieces on a grid to reach resources and unlock objectives so you can achieve the best score. Angry Birds fans will be familiar with the game's 3-star rating on each level that, in aggregate, allows you to unlock more thematically distinct realms. Slotting Tetraminos together into a finite puzzle space is an interesting pitch, but Rivertowns gradually introduces mechanics that will force you to ponder your placements more carefully. Even your first decision, in which you place the starting point of your sprawl along one of the arena rivers, is a potentially fatal one. Additionally, while you get an undo button to remove your most recently placed tile, the game quickly takes it away. On the other hand, Rivertowns does mercifully grant you the ability to store a piece in a virtual free hand if you're not quite ready to use it, but you'll need to become very strategic about it. Each level features a precast set of city pieces. You can view them all at any time, but you won't necessarily know what order they'll be distributed. The game is pretty clever about scoring too, allowing a somewhat decent player like myself to often score just shy of a highest rating, something that encouraged more than a few replays. Several smaller levels are more explicitly puzzle-like with one-to-one perfect fits, forcing you to ponder the complementary nature of these shapes to achieve those perfect scores. The game quickly introduces the concept of districts, which are color-coded pieces designed to be fit beside each other. The Free Folk Starter District features tile shapes that are very conventional if you've ever played a video game, but as you progress, additional districts arrive with their own bespoke aesthetics and shapes that you'll need to consider. While you're free to slot together any pieces from any district at any time, which becomes particularly enticing with how easily they fit together, you'll get score bonuses for keeping districts strung together by any means necessary. This forces you to think about growth paths from the very first move, so you can keep pieces both mingled and separated as needed. It also requires you to think beyond packing tiles together as tightly as possible when there are distant objectives that you'll need to sprawl your city out to acquire. Unfortunately, this realization seemed more apparent through experimentation than instruction. As you progress, the game introduces even more mechanics and arena fixtures that'll add more and more weight to your placement decisions. Early on, you'll want to make sure you establish as many bridge connections over rivers as possible to boost your global score, upon which your individual district scores are piled onto. With a fixed set of pieces in each level, you'll start developing strategies that'll help in subsequent levels. This will help when your suboptimal placements will force you to destroy a final piece or two because you didn't save any room for them on the board. For an indie game, Rivertowns has a pretty solid fit and finish artistically, although the bland but legible fonts aren't terribly inspiring, whether it's across the game's menus or in the spare and discard tile buttons. Speaking of the spare piece button, I think it'd be cool if the pennant were draped underneath the piece instead of on top, partially obscuring it. Seems like a minor fix, but what do I know? The cartoony look is cute and endearing, with little citizens bouncing around and animating when you zoom in real close. And you can zoom in real close. They're not doing anything meaningful for gameplay's sake, but it's cute. The individual levels feature set dressing elements that make them feel like they're set in nests or earthen bowls, although this can create some minor conflicts with the camera at times. The sound design is great and the music is subtle and chill when it surfaces for air at all. If there is one huge, absolutely enormous 1000% thing I wish this game would include at some point, it's a minimalist visual mode. Over the course of my time with Rivertowns, which is far from conclusive, I still struggle with visually sorting out the game's different district pieces. This isn't an issue of color deficiency, it's an issue with art direction, and the game's included visual filters are more for aesthetics than function. In a game like SimCity or City Skylines, your cities will be riven with roads and other infrastructure. Here in Rivertowns, tiles are specifically designed to blend together so that at a glance, your city looks like a cohesive whole, which doesn't help much in decision making or strategy. It's not something that makes the game unplayable by any means, but it is something that truly adds some cognitive drag to gameplay when I'm having to stop far too often to discern which building belongs to what district. If they had a mode that made the game look more explicitly like a board game with single color molded plastic tile pieces, think Monopoly houses or army men on their plastic bases, it would make it so much more accessible. Speaking of board game pieces, you've probably already realized that this is a city builder only in a literal sense. Rivertowns could remove all the city theming and bobbing citizens and give you plastic tiles to fit into a plastic tray, and you'd think this was a Chris Ramsey video. The colorful urban dressing is cute, but superficial. You're not building population, zoning for density, or managing any traffic. This isn't to disqualify the game by any means, but if you're looking for a cutesy SimCity, this isn't it. To that end, you'll also realize pretty quickly that each level features an optimal solution. While you'll have plenty of flexibility in how you approach any of them, you'll encounter the game's most puzzle-boxy tendencies as you bonk your head looking for them. If you're not aiming to 3-star each level, you'll get to avoid this for a while, but the difficulty does arrive eventually. Rivertowns is a very casual game to the extent that I actually wish it was more accessible, beyond my issues with the visuals. It's currently only available on PC, and it doesn't feature controller support. This isn't a game that needs a mouse to facilitate fast-paced APM action or pixel-precise placement, so being able to play with a controller honestly seems like a slam dunk. Without it, you'll find that all of your camera controls are mapped to the mouse with some mirrored keyboard bindings. It's fine, but I wish you could just use a stick to rotate or zoom your camera rather than holding down mouse buttons. I also wish you could reverse which direction your pieces rotate with the scroll wheel. With about half a dozen hours on the Steam clock, this is not a definitive review, but rather a recommendation. Rivertowns is really freaking cool, and I hope it lands in more places. You don't even have to take my word for it. There's a demo available to see if it's a good fit. Rivertowns launches on Steam on March 24th with a tiny budget price tag.